What's up, everybody? I'm Paul Hickey with NoOffSeason.com, host of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Welcome to Lefty Cards right here on the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, discussing the latest trends, best practices, and insider tips on sports card investing. This episode is brought to you by NoOffSeason.com, the number one place to make money flipping sports cards. Get a free 30-day trial today at NoOffSeason.com. And now, everybody, it's time for Lefty Cards.
What's up? What's up? We are back with Lefty Cards. It is a good week. We've had a good week of sports cards. We've had a good week of predictions. We've had a good week of baseball. I know it's the Premier League has been back. It's been a wild week. Halan with the hat trick and some of my bold predictions coming up. We will look at some of the different aspects that I'm buying in the future. We will look at guys that we are willing to sell. But first, we're going to talk about week 0 of the NCAA season. So we're in front of us. College football is finally, Mike Gundy said it best. It is time to do the talking on the field. We're tired of talking NIL. We're tired of talking transfers and all that kind of thing. It is time for us to get in the pay dirt, as we like to call it, and it's here. We saw week 0 happen this weekend, where Georgia Tech absolutely slaughtered Florida State. They ran it down their freaking mouths, and it was really fun to see. So let me check the audio real quick. Yep. Okay. Sounds good. We are going to be building towards some of my favorite plays of the year. And then towards the end of the episode today, we're going to talk about the MVP buyback race. I'm going to look at some odds, how we can make some money there, potentially how we can win from a sports card strategy perspective. I do think there is a way to win in this market, especially this year. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the NFL starting soon. We're going to be looking forward to week 1 of games. And yes, by the way, I am not wearing a hat today for those of you listening on Spotify and Apple. It won't change the show for you, but for those of you that are watching online, usually I wear a hat, and so you probably didn't know that I had a full head of hair. Well, I do have a full head of hair, and it is growing into a nice little mullet in the back. For those of you that are wondering, we are partying in the back, as they like to say. So let's jump back into week 1 of college football. Florida State absolutely annihilated this last weekend on a game that, I'll be honest, I really thought that this was not going to even be close. Georgia Tech came out and smacked these guys in the mouth. And I'm going to probably butcher this pronunciation, but DJ Uigalili. Let's go with that. DJ Uigalili. He didn't exactly put on the platform. This guy, hold on just a second. This guy was the number 1 recruit in his class when he came into college football, started at Clemson, bounced around. He was behind CJ Stroud, guys. So this is a guy that's been around for a while, should have been able to go to Florida State and lead to a lot of success when it comes to him. And his first showing right at the gate did not look good. We saw that has he finally found his home? There's all these articles about his draft stock going up. We even thought Turner talked about at one point how this guy could potentially be a guy we look for this summer that potentially is a undervalued autograph. And what we saw this last week was not good. His draft stock had to have sputtered as Florida State lost to Georgia Tech this week. And I can imagine he's going to have to put on quite the big show to come back and rise his stock back up to where it needed to be. And for those of us that were invested in his sports cards, we did talk about how you could potentially have an undervalued asset here. Even though he's an older quarterback, he is a guy that was on a premier team that was going to potentially fight for the legacy of what Florida State has been previously. But it's just more of the same from what we've seen from them since in the last 5 to 10 years, and it was kind of an embarrassing showing. Georgia Tech is just a bunch of engineers, and they went out there and just smacked them in the mouth. So pretty cool for me personally to see Georgia Tech win. I thought that was a really fun game to watch. And Georgia Tech dominating them in overseas was kind of cool. And for them to be able to do that, it was a fun game to watch. So with it being 21-24, of course, you keep saying, Kendall, you're dominating, blah, blah, blah. You've used that word quite a bit. Well, I think losing 21-24 when you're the number 10 ranked team in the nation to Georgia Tech, who not too long ago has ran a triple option offense, when you see them losing to Georgia Tech by 3 points, that is getting smacked in the mouth. So Georgia runs the ball quite a bit. Georgia Tech, runs the ball quite a bit and then beats them on a late field goal. So to be honest, it's not exactly smacked them in the mouth, but they did smack them around and did what people did not expect and beat Florida State. So how does this affect Georgia Tech? You know what? I don't think it really does anything. McKee turned around this Yellow Jackets program. But obviously, this is just the start for them. They need to put a good season together. But that, honestly, I'm not investing in any Georgia Tech player. Do not go out and buy autographs or whatever you need to do. Don't go out and look for Bowman U Georgia Tech players. This is not the kind of play that we want to be looking at right now. All I'm trying to say is that CJ it probably fell off, and then these guys I just had to spend at least 5 minutes talking about how they deserved for this win to be massive and to be talked about on all shows. So for anybody that's talking about sports or anything in media around the sport, is probably talking about this game this week, and I think it deserves to be talked about. Another funny thing I saw about week 0 was when we came down to, I believe it might have been SMU. Let me see. Week 0 college football scores. I can't remember all the games that were played. Yeah, it was SMU Nevada, I think, was the game. SMU ended up winning this 29-24. The only reason I want to mention this game is I thought there was something funny that I saw where the cameraman was setting up for a field goal, and they were kicking away from the camera. But the cameraman, I guess, was new, and when the kick went up, he zoomed out as if the kick was coming towards him into the field goal that was closest to him, and the field goal was actually being kicked to the uprights away from the camera. So he zoomed out instead of zooming in. So it was just like he just got the whole panorama of the whole field, and it was just simply like you could tell this was week 0 for everyone involved, which is why we shouldn't necessarily take too much stock in why Florida State lost when they're doing all the traveling and everything. And then one minor note as well, we saw Tarleton State, who used to be the rival of my West Texas A&M Buffaloes, ended up beat McKee's 26-23. I hate it when I ever see any of the Tarleton State teams win anything. So unfortunate for McNeese, they could not pull off beating Tarleton State. It's weird to see them in Division I football. Anyway, so okay, before we go into my NFL start soon and what to do about our fantasy rosters and how to potentially win in sports cards and when we are selling, let's go ahead and go to our first commercial of the day. Let's talk about nooffseason.com from my man, Paul Hickey.
What's up, everyone? I'm Paul Hickey with nooffseason.com. Why should you subscribe to nooffseason.com's premium membership? Do you like the content on this show? Want more? Well, a free 30-day trial membership at nooffseason.com gives you a Friday edition of the Sports Card Strategy Show called The Overflow Show. It's a premium podcast for members only every Friday, and you can ask an unlimited amount of questions to build your sports card investment portfolio, and I answer them for you. I put in the work, research, and do the analysis, give you the best possible answer so you can increase your chances of making money flipping sports cards. And if that's not enough reason to sign up for a free 30-day trial today, you get Sports Card School, tons of premium members-only articles, and our new formula-based sports card rankings to help you find the cards with the best ROI to make money in the hobby. Sign up today at nooffseason.com.
Thank you, Paul. I wanted to come back to talk about NFL start of the season. So we are 2 Thursdays technically away from the NFL, but we've got all of the preseason games behind us. We'll see roster trims this year or this week. I'm anxious to, usually there's always one roster trim or two around the NFL that has some sort of basis in what we do with card investing and collecting. Usually there's one guy that's particularly maybe fourth or fifth on the depth chart, ends up going to another team and ends up popping off. We're going to try to give you those best representations of what that looks like next week in terms of where guys hit when they fall off a roster, when they get waived and picked up by another team. But the week 1 NFL schedule, I think is an interesting time for us to be looking at when we sell, because there's some matchups that I'll be honest, when I look at the matchups sheet, when I play in these leagues that are called survivor leagues, and so basically you're just trying to maintain like a long list of who's winning football games. So you basically just pick a winner every week. And when I looked at the week 1 winners, there's a lot of close matchups in terms of people that I'm like, well, like you can kind of build this narrative in your head. And for instance, the first game of the week is Ravens Chiefs. I think that's the first game of the season and could not even a matchup out there. I would be more excited than this. You've got Lamar Jackson immediately up against Patrick Mahomes in a Thursday night matchup at 8:20. Like everybody in their mom will be watching this. And I am actually going to list my Lamar Jackson cards right before the start of this game and get some hype. I have one Lamar Jackson laser. I'm going to get this out there. And I'm gonna hopefully have this card sell for more than I bought it for. I bought it for $380 and I expect it to sell for around $450. And if he goes ahead and beats the Chiefs over those next 7 days, that could be a pretty explosive card. Looking forward to listing my Ravens card there. But I'm probably gonna hold off on my big Jared Goff cards because the Lions play the Rams, and although I expect them to beat the Rams, it is a Sunday night game, so I'm definitely going to hold off on that unless Jared Goff goes absolutely nuclear in that game, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown has maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns or something crazy. He connects with Williams over the top a lot. And I'm probably going to hold off on Goff considering I have a much more considerable investment. Or maybe by the time Thursday rolls around, I'll have switched the way that I'm playing this, and maybe I'm going to hold out on Lamar because I think he's going to be an MVP candidate, and maybe I sell one of my Jared Goffs early. But I'm just telling you, I've already got my Gardner Minshew's out there. We'll talk about that in just a minute as I'll give you a actual reaction to what is going to happen with my Lamar Jacksons. And then I'm going to take a different take on the Bo Nix because I saw so many Bo Nix cards listed last week. I'm trying to be crafty and list them in a different way to potentially study them alongside of what Paul and Turner are doing. So in terms of my week 1 starts, what I think will be interesting and where I could see some value being played is I think this Texans-Colts game is a really interesting one. 2 extremely good young quarterbacks, one that's proven himself and wants to continue on that progression, and one that hasn't, and one that thinks they have one of the best teams in national football. When you hear Richardson talk about what they're doing in Indianapolis, he thinks they legit have one of the best teams out there. And both of these guys are investable and have been all summer. So this is the kind of game that both of these guys are probably going to either sling the ball a lot or the defenses will be prevalent. I don't think it'll be one way or the other. I don't think Stroud will play well and Richardson won't, or one way or the other. I think it's either going to be both of them go for it or both of them don't. I'm looking forward to this matchup. I think it's one of the ones it's probably the one that I will tune into at 1:00 on Sunday morning. Surprisingly, I'm not excited about Steelers Falcons. I'd rather watch Texans Colts. And I'm actually kind of excited about Jaguars Dolphins because I would love to see the Dolphins run all over the Jaguars. But additionally, I would like to see potentially Trevor Lawrence put the pieces together this year. Titans Bears, I think that's going to be nasty. I think the Bears are going to win in slim fashions, but I think the Bears will get excited about beating the Titans, and I think we will start to see the media around this Bears team get really electric. And Caleb Williams cards could be pretty valuable towards the middle of the year because I don't think they're going to make a postseason run, but I do believe that he's going to play better than people expect him to do. So that's where my NFL's and my bold predictions for the year in terms of the NFL is I believe that Daniel Jones will put it together this year and he will be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Daniel Jones is going to lead this Giants team to second in the division. I think they are going to beat the Cowboys out for second in the division. So it's going to be Eagles, Giants, Cowboys, and then Washington. Washington is going to have a fine year, but they're just not going to be able to compete yet. I think that the Panthers are going to play much better than they did last year. I don't know if that's a hot take or a bold prediction, but I do think Bryce Young is going to put it together. I actually think he's going to slay the Saints on Sunday. Another young matchup. Desmond Ridder, maybe. Derek Carr, maybe. We don't really know what's going on down there in New Orleans. But I could see Bryce Young's value going pretty hot after he wins this game against the Saints. I'm expecting them to beat the Saints. And then Packers, Eagles, that could be a fun one on Friday night. We have Thursday night games, Friday night games, and then Sundays on this first week of the NFL season. I do like the Packers-Eagles matchup. I think that'll be fun considering Jordan Love is fun to watch. And then Jalen Hurts obviously is a good matchup as well. So those are some of the hot takes that I have. I think that the Texans will be a force to reckon with. I think the Bears will play much better than people are expecting. I think the Broncos will suck. I think Bo Nix will really struggle. I think the Raiders will suck. I think the Chargers will be good. I think the Buccaneers will not make the playoffs again. I don't believe that Baker Mayfield is going to be able to put it together again. I think the Ravens end up winning the North. I think the Browns end up making the playoffs, but in a wild card spot. Here's a tough one. I think the Cowboys could struggle to make the playoffs. Yep, I said it. I think they will return back to potentially their 8-8 seasons, or 8-9, or 9-9, or however many games are left this year. And then I think Russell Wilson gets replaced by his backup immediately. Sorry, I can't think of his name. But I think that is a backup that gets replaced immediately. Okay, guys. Well, let's move on to after the NFL. We are going to move into our second commercial break, and then we're going to come back with some baseball options that I think are going to be pretty appealing for us that are trying to make money in sports cards.
Kendall, are these people ready to start grading their sports cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today.
All right, so this is probably the most meaty section of what we're going to be talking about today. I love this potential topic of the Topps Buyback program is something that I've wanted to talk about and wanted to really dive really deep into over the past couple of weeks. But I hadn't had all of my data together. I hadn't had it all put together well. Didn't really know exactly what I was going to potentially talk about with it. I wanted to have a compelling argument put together. So as I was talking to Krim earlier today, I kind of got some statistics around what we were doing and some things and what they offer from the shop. But for those of you that don't know what the Topps Buyback program is, let me just quickly talk about that. In 2022, I believe, is when they came out with this. It's an incentive to basically go for the Topps Chrome packs and go for the guys that you potentially think are going to win the MVP. Some years it's not as obvious as others, but this year it is incredibly obvious, in my opinion, who's going to win. And you can just look at the Vegas odds on this. The two guys that I think are going to win, that most people believe are going to win, I don't even think this is an absolutely ice cold take, that Shohei Ohtani is going to win the National League MVP once again, and then Aaron Judge is going to win once again in the AL as well. Aaron Judge is on an absolute tear this week. He's people are asking if he's going to end up hitting 73, and 62 is his record from last year, which is just correct, or a couple years ago, which is just insane. This guy has hit I think 9 home runs in the past 7 days. So Aaron Judge is going absolutely nuclear, and why I think there will be actual graded Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani plays to make during this postseason. I'm going to save that for now, and we're going to talk about a way that I know that you can bona fide make some money now in terms of looking at their program. So the Topps 2024 MVP Buyback Challenge. I'm reading this off of Topps website right now. The Topps Buyback program returns in anticipation for the 2024 AL and MLB MVPs. Starting in November, Topps and participating hobby shops, which are most of the hobby shops that are recognizable, will be buying back 2024 Topps Chrome cards featuring the 2024 MLB MVPs, offering you store credit in exchange for your cards. So how it works. You buy a 2024 Topps Chrome and collect all the MVP candidates. Once the MVPs are announced in November, you bring those 2024 Topps Chrome cards to your local hobby shop and you exchange the AL and NL MVP cards for store credit. So it's an incentive for you to keep buying the Topps Chrome packets, keep collecting some cards that could essentially be maybe 10 cents, because this is what probably their 15th year of making cards of either of these guys in any degree. So these guys, this card would be just thrown away if there was not a buyback opportunity. So it's a cool incentive to see some value around a card that wouldn't technically have that value anyway. So and then what are the 2024 cards parts of the programs and what are they worth? Well, this is what is online. The base Topps Chrome and base image variation will be priced at $20 store credit. Any of the refractors, so that's the Topps Chrome logo fractor, image variation, logo fractor, refractor, X fractor, sepia, prism, pink, negative, and rayway refractors will all go for $40 store credit. The out of over 100, so that is the lightboard logo variation, magenta, purple, aqua, and blue parallels, whether that's the logo fractor refractor, sonar, or ray wave. So that's out of 125, out of 150, out of 199, out of 250, out of 299, and out of 350. Those are all going to be $100 store credit. And then above that, under 100. So basically, one of ones, out of fives, base variations, oranges, golds, greens, anything up to out of 99, black out of 10, any of that kind of stuff is going to end up being $200 of store credit. So the way that I think that you could potentially play this is simple. Here's the thing. The thing for us as a sports card strategy, we don't ever recommend buying wax. And so that's what I want to preface this with is you're going to get store credit for this. So you're going to have to potentially be really crafty on how you play this. But I do think there's an opportunity for us to win. So let me break down who I think. Well, actually, I'm just going to keep talking about what I just mentioned. So when you get store credit, typically most people's option is potentially moving only into wax. I want to potentially offer you something different. Potentially look at investing in a slab that is undervalued of a sport that's not baseball. For instance, maybe look at a sport that is out of season currently. So at the time when these are going to roll out and you get MVP credit for these, baseball will be over. So maybe move into a slab of another guy like Bobby Witt Jr. or another guy of Acuna or another guy that has dropped in value, that is a superstar. Maybe Tatis or Juan Soto's value will be high because the Yankees will probably be in the playoffs. And so I'm thinking about guys that are going to potentially be off the radar for most people. I think Acuna and Bobby Witt Jr. would be my favorites for the buyback opportunities to buy back into slabs. Now, not every card shop is going to let you use your store credit for slabs because usually they have like store credit in terms of what wax opportunities, but I'll also give you some options in terms of wax buybacks as well. I think if they allow you to hold your potential buyback after this, you end up selling and then buying into a box of 2024 draft Bowman. I think that would be a really appealing option. Or if you were able to get into some of these prisms of the rookie class from last year, from the football quarterbacks, and then also if we were to move into prism basketball, potentially using those. So don't buy into a product that you don't really care about, but also don't use the $100 or $200 store credit to buy a $3,000 box of National Treasure or something, because you're still gambling on a National Treasure, and you're not going to potentially get a logo man of Patrick Mahomes out of your. I mean, the odds are there, but the odds are very, very, very slim. So try to play to your strengths here. Try to play to something that you know you're going to potentially win on if you're going to do this. So let's talk about the potential players where I feel like you could make value here. So let's just go with the two guys that we've talked about previously. I want to talk about Shohei and Judge right away because they are by far the favorites for both the MVPs in both of their leagues. They're about halfway through the season. FanDuel is having specific bets on their platform, not only of just will Shohei and Judge end up winning the MVPs, but they were having specific Shohei and Judge bets rather than just MVP singles bets. For instance, right now, because of how nuclear Aaron Judge has played over the last week and a half, the MVP odds for the American League are not even offered on FanDuel because they have the odds would be like so weighted in a potentially different guy, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that it wouldn't necessarily even be fair because of how Aaron Judge is going to have to return to earth a little bit before they offer it back up. So, but I can tell you that Shohei Ohtani is so much of the favorite. He is at minus 2,300 right now, which for those of you that don't know basically how betting works, minus 2,300 means that you would have to bet $2,300. You would have to put $2,300 on the table to potentially win $100 back. That's how likely it is. It is a almost assured thing that Shohei is going to win the MVP. And the next odds is Francisco Lindor at plus 500, which even that is not really a great bet. You're putting $100 on the table for 500 in return for a guy who's not going to win the MVP. And then the odds are so good for Shohei, and they're even better for Aaron Judge right now in winning the MVP. So let's look at these guys and what their prices are going for. So let me share my screen here. We're going to add to the stage here. This is my Market Movers app. I know it looks a little funky because I don't have my dual screen up and I have it pinched on my thing so I can guide you through it. But this is just the current last sale price of the base of both of these Topps Chrome base cards. So their Judges is hovering around $12 and Shohei's is around $13. These cards, you will get $20 of store credit. So essentially you're investing here into a card that's going to come back. And from what I understand, it doesn't necessarily matter how good in condition, like it doesn't have to be a PSA 10 when it comes to you. So you are literally just buying a ticket to turn back in for store credit. So if you bought enough of these, you could get a pretty good deal. Say you got maybe you got 10 Shohei cards for let's just say you got 10 Shohei cards for $110. That would be $130 worth of value right now for 110. And for each one of those, when you go into the shop, it's going to be a $20 premium back to you. Like that's a pretty good turnaround. So you're spending 110, 130 there to potentially get 200 off on a box. That's pretty good. So I mean, you're coming in at like a 45% off basically on a box of $200 value. So could be a pretty cool move there. Judge is even better. So you're at $12.17 right now for an Aaron Judge Topps Chrome card. The problem is people are not selling this card right now because they know they can get store credit for it. But at the same time, this card is only store credit. So sometimes people are willing to move these right now to potentially get into another option. So I have another take right after this, and I will be right back when it comes to what are we going to do next.
Yo, Lefty, we use a lot of data, don't we? Well, I just want everyone to know that they can get the same data we get by signing up at marketmoversapp.com. Sign up at marketmoversapp.com today, but use the promo code NOOFFSEASON to save 20% after a free 14-day trial. That's marketmoversapp.com, promo code NOOFFSEASON.
Sorry, guys. Somebody was at my door and I needed to go check on that, but I will be right. That's the trouble of a live show. Sometimes when somebody jumps in the middle of it, you're like, "What the heck did Lefty? Where did Lefty go?" So sorry about that. I had to jump in and answer the door real quick and tell somebody, "Hey, I'm on the phone." So anyway, back to what I was talking about, the Shohei and Judge parallels. So I think there could be a play here depending on the number of parallels as well. I would buy the highest, I guess, the lowest amount of rarity in each section and potentially get that much card back in return. For instance, if you're looking at the out of 350 rather than the out of 199, I'm sure the price difference on eBay is different, but you're getting the same amount of store credit for both of those cards. So go ahead and buy just the one that you can find the best deal on in that same category of cards. Now, another thing that I would think is a play here, if you want to be really cheeky, and we don't like to do this. Now, I'm not telling you to be cheeky just because, but there is a way potentially that you could base your money around two other players and make far more return if something is to happen. So let me share this with you. There is, if you're looking at the screen now, I have brought up 4 different players. We still have Shohei and Aaron Judge on here, but I brought up 2 other guys. Jackson Merrill is going ballistic right now. So he is in the National League, and his odds are pretty far down there. I mean, they're not even on the list of what I'm looking at. But I think by the end of the season, if he keeps this up, he could be in this MVP race. And if an injury were to happen with Judge or Shohei, then they might not win the MVP race, even at this late in the year. So what I'm thinking about is I have on the list here, I have Jackson Merrill's base chrome, and that is coming in at $4. So if you were able to make a couple of plays on a couple of these cards, say you bought, maybe 3 or 4 of them tried to get them around $10 for 3 or 4 of them. 10 to 12 for 3 to 4 of them, depending on how you did that. And then Jackson Merrill did end up winning. That is like crazy money back in return for a small amount risked. Now, this is a very marginal part of our portfolio, guys. This is something that we're taking a marginal flyer on when it comes to this. Also, the Bobby Witt that I have on the screen here is a magenta speckle out of 250. So this card is so cheap right now. It is impossible to find on market movers. It is I believe, let's see, when I look at eBay for a top 2024 Bobby Witt Jr. base chrome, the prices that you're seeing on these are like $1.50. I think there is legitimacy to Bobby Witt Jr. potentially being closer to Francisco Lindor. How close Francisco Lindor is to Shohei, I believe that Bobby Witt Jr. is closer to Judge in terms of the odds. Now, is Judge going to get passed by Bobby Witt Jr.? No, not unless something crazy happens in terms of if Judge were to unfortunately pick up an injury or not. But I'm saying with a base Topps Chrome 2024 Bobby Witt Jr. selling for $1, and you could potentially get 10 of those for $10, and then that would be $100 off of a buyback opportunity. That might be something that I would be willing to weigh in on. Plus, if you can get $200 off for a $20 card for a Bobby Witt Jr., something like that, I might be willing to play 1 or 2 of those to potentially mitigate some of my risk. The overall favorites are Aaron Judge and Shohei on this opportunity, and we don't want to look past this buyback opportunity as something we can potentially not win on. But the point of this, the point I believe of this thing that Topps has done here is they want people to potentially buy into a lot of different base chromes of the MVP racers going towards the end of the line. They probably did not expect 2 guys to have solidified the MVP race in early August, and now we're talking about at the end of August. But in early August, these guys had it wrapped up. Maybe even in July, they were this massive favorites. And so I don't like that just wasn't on Top's projection sheet. So they were expecting you to potentially be able to get Ellie De La Cruz and Francisco Lindor and Shohei Ohtani and Bryce Harper shares all across the board. And you were buying potentially 10 of all these cards to potentially have a buyback opportunity. But it's now pretty much solid that Shohei and Judge are going to win this. And so we're just trying to talk about potential value. If they weren't one of those guys, the value is skyrocketing. So they're around $1.50 of Bobby Witt Jr. or Francisco Lindor. I put Jackson Merrill up here because I think he would be the guy that I would be excited about having a potential base. Plus, it's the rookie card of Jackson Merrill. So long, if it doesn't work out for you in the MVP race, you can grade that card, and it could potentially be the base chrome graded Ellie De La Cruz like play potentially in the future as well, because Jackson Merrill's not going anywhere. He's an absolute stud. He's 21 years old, and he's hitting the crap out of the ball. So I think the money that we could be making here on the Jackson Merrill play could be good, and I would be interested to see how we run that card through the formula on Wednesday. If Paul and I get on the show, I would be, or when we do get on the show, I would be interested to see what this Jackson Merrill card graded and potentially if the formula says it's a good idea. This one might be one where the formula doesn't realize how nuclear of a rise that Jackson Merrill is going on, and it might be an eye test type thing. I think Jackson Merrill is here to stay, and I would think that it's a guy that I would be willing to invest in the long run when it comes to where we're looking for in a card that we like investing in. Okay, so let's jump to our last commercial, and then we'll come back with a section that I like to talk about, some bold moves.
Lefty, we say that breaking is not necessarily a sports card strategy, but there's a lot of great things going on Whatnot other than breaking. They now have singles auctions and an improved overall experience on their platform. I want everyone to know that they can get $15 free on Whatnot by joining Whatnot through this URL. Go to whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. That's whatnot.sportscardstrategy.com. Lefty, back to you.
All right. So this is the segment that I like to call some bold takes. So I had some people message me on our Instagram. By the way, Lefty Cards and on Twitter and on Instagram does come to me. I would love to talk to you guys, but I had some people reach out to me about some of my old bold takes, and they said, "Yeah, we love the formula. We love what you're doing with the smart plays and all this kind of stuff, but we miss when you would just make some bold claims and we would see how those rolled out based on some of your convictions. Can you give us some more bold takes? Maybe not as super investment advice, but just something to potentially make good content and laugh about in a couple of months." So of course, I'm going to have some that are baseball and soccer related, and I do have one football take when what we're looking at the NFL regular season coming up soon. My first take is that Haaland is a good investment now. Now, we've just seen Man City come off a treble year and absolutely just annihilate people in the past. But week 2 of the Premier League season, Haaland shows up with a hat trick. Looks absolutely incredible. I think this could be a Ballon d'Or year for him. And here's why I say that. I think there's a lot of Ballon d'Or, which is the award that people will get, or that players will get for the best all-around soccer player in the world. I think the potential of a lot of those guys in the Ballon d'Or conversation are all on Real Madrid's team. Therefore, if Mbappe and Bellingham and Vinny Jr. and all those, if they cannibalize each other's goals, I think Haaland has a real good chance of potentially getting up there. And if not Haaland, it could end up being Phil Foden, which would be pretty interesting, considering a guy or an Englishman hasn't won it in a long, long, long time. Of course, it's been an Argentinian and a Portuguese guy for a lot of the history of recent history, but Messi and Ronaldo, for those of you that didn't get that. But I think Haaland is going to have an incredible season and potentially try to fight for some of his own records that he's going to break. And so I think getting in on a Haaland now wouldn't be a bad option. I am holding mine as I expect him to be Manchester City to be fighting for Champions Leagues again this year. I believe that they are going to be fighting for a lot lot more than that. And I believe that, well, maybe not a lot more than that because that's pretty much the cream of the crop. But I think Halan is going to be the biggest guy going forward. So that's not exactly a hot take. This guy is definitely one of the best strikers in the world. But I was just having an argument with a friend of mine yesterday about is Luis Suarez the best striker since R9? And I said Lewandowski is a potential option. And he was like, yeah, that's good. And then I said, Ibrahimovic, what about him? He's like, I'm not, I think Luis Suarez is better. And then I said, well, what about Halan? Could Halan get up there? And he like totally said, oh, absolutely no way. And I was thinking, I don't know if he's actually getting the respect he really deserves yet. Of course, he's a poacher. Of course, he's, the man that runs like a brick house. But I think there is a lot more technique that this guy could potentially play into when he potentially could show off a little more of his skills rather than just the bruteness that he typically shows off. Okay, I'm going to look at Xavier Edwards. This is a guy that's having a absolutely blow up season with the Miami Marlins. He's a prospect that fell off, and potentially, I think next year we will see Xavier Edwards have quite the rise in fan popularity. He's having a really good season this year, but the Marlins are horrible. And so I think next year could be Xavier Edwards. We could see a lot of that name, and potentially the Marlins could end up moving him as well because they got him for pretty cheap, pennies on the dollar. And I think he has definitely shown that he can be the guy hitting for the second cycle in Marlins history earlier this season. Having nice exit velocities put together, I think they could move him for a good asset to potentially keep rebuilding this program. It's a good sign from a rebuilding program that one of the guys they took a leap on is paying off. So Xavier Edwards, I think, is a good buy going forward. Plus, I'm pretty sure his cards are very cheap, and he's already in the MLB. So the marker would be a longer-term hold, but like I said, these are Kenny's hot takes rather than, like a super smart investment. Griffin Conine finally hitting the majors tomorrow. So we have talked about him years ago, and a guy that I thought was hitting the cover off the ball in the minor leagues, and his exit velos and his isolated power numbers were incredible. He couldn't stop striking out, but he hits the major leagues finally tomorrow. I will be selling his MLB cards that I've had for a long time. I'll be selling those this week. I'll be putting them up on eBay. And my last absolutely hot take. I've already talked about how I thought potentially Lamar Jackson could be the MVP. My absolutely nuclear take, and pretty much just to rub Paul the wrong way, is I believe that the New York Jets will not only make the playoffs, but that Aaron Rodgers will fight for an MVP vote or two and could potentially take home a Super Bowl. Garrett Wilson is incredible. They have Hall back there running the ball. They are a very complete team on both sides of the ball, and if they can get Aaron Rodgers back to any sort of shell of who he was previously, they do not need more than a system quarterback to potentially turn a new tide in New York. And wouldn't it be cool to see the Green Jets actually doing something worth watching? That's the end of it I have for today. Thanks for getting onto Lefty Cards with me today. Really interesting in how we play this buyback opportunity over the next month or two. I'm glad that we're able to create a segment around it. College football is officially here. This weekend should be all college football for all of us. It's going to be a fun week. And then the NFL is starting soon with a Thursday, Friday, Sunday games. And so make sure you get your Red Zone subscription up and make sure your cards are pre-listed. Make sure you make the listings and then put them in your drafts. Already take pictures. So whenever they go live, no matter where you're at, you do not have to miss anything and get your auction sold. All right, guys, had fun with you today. Thanks for being on Lefty Cards. Peace.
Lefty, great work on today's show. Thanks for supporting Lefty Cards, part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network. Get a free 30-day trial today at NoOffSeason.com to check out our formula-based sports card rankings to help you make money flipping sports cards. Subscribe to Lefty Cards on YouTube and follow us on socials by visiting leftycards.com.